Welcome back. This is Ross Does Fusion 360 Tutorials. I'm going to do Design Solid section, tutorial number 5, adding features to a part. And there's 4 activities in there. We're going to make a little gas pedal, a mounting, threaded mount thing, and then a turbine blade. All right, so let's get started. I'll move this off to the side. I have Fusion going. I'll go to the data panel, home, basic training, O4 modeling, gas pedal. So this is how it opens up. What I like to do, what I encourage you to do, is go through this timeline and just see how they make this thing. So if you click this move to beginning button here, and then, well, actually move to the end and open up all this construction and turn everything on. Okay, and then the same with sketches, turn everything on. Otherwise you won't see them in the timeline as you go through the timeline. Turn all the bodies on. Okay, then move to the timeline to the beginning, and then just start clicking this little next step button, and you can see first they did that sketch, then they did an extrusion, then they did another extrusion, then another extrusion, then some, I don't know what that was. What was that? Fillet. Then what was that? Another fillet, right? Then what? You can hover over there. Case cutout. They did a sketch. Case cutout. Then they, what is that? Split face. So you can play with these and see how they constructed this thing. You can also just click the play button in the middle and it'll kind of run through the whole thing. It's pretty cool. It's a really good way to learn how to plan these projects out. For some reason it's stopping. I don't understand why. I'm going to drag it all the way to the end. All right, I'm going to turn off all of the construction. I'm going to turn off these sketches individually. And there we go. That's what it looks like when you start. All right, they want you to do a loft first. So it's good to turn on this loft 2 and this loft centerline sketch. You could turn on loft 1, but you don't really need it. In fact, you don't even need loft 2, but it's nice to have. Then let's see, we go up to create, loft, and select the profile. So this is the first profile. Then go around, orbit around, and select this thing on this pedal face, this profile. Then click centerline, and now we're ready to select the guide. Click that, and it just does it. That's it. Select OK, and we're done with that. Okay, the next thing is to do a web. So we need to get the sketch for the web up. There it is. Then create web and start clicking these lines here. Now you have to hold, you have to hold down Control to select more than one thing, and if you mouse in the right position, you'll get this little message that will remind you of that. But so you can hold down Control, or the other thing you can do is if you make the thickness 0, then it just lets you select multiple lines. So you don't have to hold down Control. Not a big deal, but you just want to pick the lines that sort of cross over this arm that we just extruded. like that one. It's like we don't need this one down here, and we don't need this one, but we need this one. We should have 11 total, just the ones that kind of cover over this area right in here. Okay, then you can put in the distance now. Oops, not 20, 2. And it does it. And it just sort of extrudes these to the first surface that it comes up against, to like 2 next. So that's this surface in here. All right, that's the web. That's oh yeah. Okay, then the next thing is this rib. So we need to turn on the rib sketch. That's this little set of lines in here, the black one and these purple ones. And then we want to create a rib. And click this thing and key in 7.5. And I've done this already, and maybe I have the right defaults, but you want to make sure that you have these values specified in here, and that's it. That's it. Those are the operations that they want you to perform on this. The last thing, they tell you to go to this other part of the tutorial and set some properties. So this little first box up here in the browser is a component. They've made this into a component somewhere along the way. And you want to right click this little cube in there and go to physical material. You get this dialog. You want to dig around, open up plastic, find ABS plastic, and drag it over. Click on it, hold the mouse button down, drag it over here and drop it on there, and then close. Now you go back to gas pedal, right click again, go to properties, and it'll tell you the material that we just selected is in here, ABS plastic, and it'll tell you the mass, which is 262, and that's from the tutorial. That's the correct value, so we did it right, I guess. And there's the volume, 2.4 something cubic millimeters. Okay, that's the first little part. So I'll get started on the second one. All right, I'm not going to save this thing, so go back home, go to basic training, before modeling, threaded mount. Okay, this thing here, so look what we got. We got this one body. You can expand it. There's one body in there. And look at the timeline. When you first open this, the timeline is not at the end. It's 3 operations back. Okay, so that's important here. You can actually click these operations to move them around, change their order. You can also move this timeline marker thing. All right, so they did another extrusion here. So the problem is they want you to do some operations, but they want you to start with this timeline rolled back. That's kind of a big deal. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the operations they say. So first thing we're going to do is create some counterbore holes. So open up sketches and turn on the hole feature sketch, which is this square thing on the back, and then go to create hole. Face sketch points. Just click these 4 corners here, and see all the parameters. You set up your options like this, like it says like it's shown in the tutorial here. The distance, we want that to be all, which will just make the hole all the way through. And let's see, this is 10 millimeters, this is 2.5 millimeters, this is 7.5. That's it. Click OK, and it does these holes with counterbores in them that go all the way through. Okay, the next operation is a shell. So go into sketches, and actually no, you don't need that. You can just click, you can just start the shell command, modify shell. Click this face. The thickness is 2, and that's it. So it's shelled. All the walls are now 2 millimeters thick. So this wall up here, this face in the front, is a 2 millimeter thick surface. So now you can go back to the timeline and roll it all the way forward. So we had the timeline paused here, and we added this hole operation here and the threaded mount operation. We sort of inserted them in there by doing them with the timeline paused at this, or not paused, but like marked at this position. So now we can drag it to the end, and it'll do an extrusion and make a couple of sketches is what it's doing. See, so now we've got this extrusion, this cylinder that's going all the way through. The reason we wanted to do the shell before the extrusion is if we would have had if we would have had this extrusion that's making this cylinder done before we did the shell, then it would have shelled the cylinder, and this cylinder would just be a thin shell instead of a more substantial thickness that it has now, which doesn't seem like a big deal. But in a second here, I'll finish this and I'll try and show you how it would be messed up if you didn't do these operations in this order. So the next thing we need to do is a chamfer. We pick this edge or chamfer. I think is it 3 millimeters? Yeah. Okay, do that. Then create a thread. Where is it? Thread. So you pick this surface, then I think I got all the stuff in there right. You want to click modeled, and that's what we want. That's it. Let me just turn this around and see. Yeah, it worked right. So that's what they want us to do in the tutorial. I will point out that it's still kind of messed up. If you zoom in here, because of the way the chamfer is done, it's not a matter of order of operations here. It just doesn't work. I tried it in both ways, and when you try and put a chamfer on the end of a thread here, it just doesn't do it right. So if you really wanted to do a thread right, you'd have to make a little area here and then revolve it around the front of the thread, and use that to cut the thread at a 45-degree angle, and that works. So let's see. So let me go ahead and set the material and check it. So we go over here to physical material. They want us to use a metal. Scroll down to alloy steel. No, I'm in aluminum. There's alloy steel. Steel, comma, alloy, I guess. Okay, steel, alloy, drag it over here and drop it on there. Close the dialog, right click the component, go to properties, and you get a number here for mass. which is not correct. Okay, my mass is 1300. I'm supposed to be getting 1465. I think what I did wrong is I think the shell is too thin here. So let me go back to, or I'll cancel out of this mass properties. Let me go back to the shell operation, double click in the timeline. Let me change the inside thickness here to 2.5. Gets a little bit thicker, then I'll go back to the browser, right click on properties. Yeah, I get 1426. I'm supposed to get 1465. Let's see. Well, I looked around, I can't find it, so I'm off by a little bit on the mass properties. I'm just going to press on. But I do want to show you how the order of operations is important in this. If you look in here, this center cylinder here is what? It's pretty thick, okay? And that's because we did the shell before we extruded this cylinder out. Let's see if I can change the order of operations. If I would have done the, let's see, if I would have done the threaded mount after if I would have done the extrude before the shell, let me see, just by dragging the extrusion operation before the shelling operation in the timeline, then this is what happens. The cylinder gets real thin. Basically this wall, well, in between these threads there would have been a surface, because this whole cylindrical protrusion, like I can go here, I can back up one, yeah, and this whole cylindrical protrusion is shelled 3 millimeters thick, and you can sort of see that by getting in here and looking kind of in this section here. You can see that this whole protrusion is shelled, and so when you do the threads actually cut into that surface, you see. So okay, so you don't want to, you want to do the, where is it, all back up here, where is that thing, do the extrusion after the shell. Okay, so it's kind of cool that you can do that. You can change the order of operations, and you can set the timeline marker at some particular location and then do a whole bunch of operations at that location. Right, that's that thing. I'll close that. I'm not going to save it, and I'll go back to the data browser thing, basic training, 04 modeling, turbine. Okay, let's kind of look around and see what we got. The timeline's all the way at the end on this one. Nothing weird going on with the timeline. Let me expand the sketches and turn them all on. Turn on all the bodies. Okay, so we've got this extra body that's kind of yellow. I don't know what's going on with that, but there's basically two bodies. There's this curvy blade thing and then this hub thingy. And the sketches, if you just take some time to look at just the sketches, they're in two planes. There's let's see, there's a sketch, this thing, this hub thing, which is revolved to make the hub. Then there's this line. They're in the same plane. I guess it's the YX plane. And then this purple line here, and this little square thingy, those are in the blue plane, which I guess is the ZY plane. You can sort of do this with the cube and look at these things for a bit and just sort of convince yourself what plane they're in. Anyway, that's nice to do. I like to do that just to get my orientation. So let me set it back up the way it was originally. All right. Okay, the first thing to do is duplicate this cutout in here. All right. This little slot thingy, which was done by extruding this purple or this blue square. They did an extrusion and used the extrusion to cut this slot. So the slot is now a feature, and that's what we want to duplicate, is the feature. Instead of reproducing all of these extrusion commands a bunch of times, you can actually just duplicate the slot itself, which I call a feature. So what is the command there? It's pattern, create pattern, pattern on path. Then for the type, so you could duplicate all of these different things. Here we want feature, and then it'll let us select this right there. That slot is the feature. Then click this path select button. Path is this, no, it's the end of this. It's the edge here. It's that edge. The distance to key in is 80. And the quantity is 10. Okay, then click OK, and boom, it does these, duplicates all those slots. That's kind of cool. Okay, then we want to basically do a polar array, so they call that a pattern. So it's create pattern, but now it's a circular pattern. We just did a pattern on path. Now we're doing a circular pattern. We're gonna select, I think it's bodies now. We want this thing. Then for then you click objects, and then I selected the pattern, or the this body, the blade. Then click axis. Now here you can select this edge. You could also select this axis in here, the vertical axis. Either one would work. We'll go with the circle. Click that. Quantity is 15. Click OK. Does that. Then the last thing to do is a mirror. Modify, create mirror. And if pattern type is set to bodies, so if you draw a box around all of this stuff, it'll select just the bodies that are in that window. And we have 16 bodies. Is that the right number? Yeah, 15 blades and then the turbine. All right, then the mirror plane, click the selection button on that. Scroll around the bottom, just click the bottom face of this thing. It's the mirror plane. Click OK. Mirrors it. That's it. Then last thing to do is check the mass. So go to the object browser, top level component here. Right click that, go to physical material, expand metal, and grab aluminum here and drag it over and drop it on there. Close this dialog, then go back to the browser, click on the turbine component, properties. You get this dialog here. You can check that the material is aluminum. You can check this number 4294, and that's the right answer. So we did it right. Okay, that was the tutorial 4 there. Hope you have fun with that. I hope this demo was somewhat useful to you. Just follow the instructions in the product documentation. All right, bye-bye.